Welcome to the Pentatonic Pentathlon. Today we're going to run the pentatonic scale through a series of events in which we take bands and their signature songs and apply them to the many different uses of pentatonic scale. So the goal is to go beyond the expected blues realm. So we're going to kind of exclude most blues unless one of the genres that we're doing have some crossover, and that's where you'll see a lot of that pentatonic going on. But as we move through this, you'll see we're getting further and further away from pure pentatonic roots and getting into some really interesting stuff. So this is part one. We're going to go through blues and classic rock, southern rock too. We'll go through funk free-for-all, and then we'll go through some metal tunes and riffs that are rooted in the pentatonics. So here goes. Let's take a look at the pentatonic scale. It looks like this. I'm going to do it in the key of A for now. It has a bluesy attitude. We're going to add to this something called blue notes in a minute. But before we do that, let's look at the scale this is derived from. This comes straight out of natural minor, which you might know. It looks like this. There's natural minor. And so they look very similar. Notice the pointer finger doesn't move. It's in the same place for both scales. The difference is we're going to cut away any half steps. And so there's a half step between the... Okay, that's where your second and third are. So we're going to clip that second note out of there. So we go right to just one minor third away. Okay, skipping the second note. Then we're going to skip that sixth note and continue straight on. Okay, until you get to the seventh in the octave. So the way it's going to look in the end is like this. 5 notes, 5 tones, pentatonic. Now you see how it was built. Now you notice that it has some of the assets to it is it has big dramatic jumps and only 2 notes on each string that you have to worry about in terms of learning. And so people tend to pick up the pentatonic scale really quickly. What they don't do usually is move on to the next positions. As you go through there, there's second, third, fourth, and fifth position. Just think, pentatonic means every one of those notes could technically be a starting point. And so that creates a different scale for each one of these. You'll see a lot of them incorporate this fifth position pentatonic. If we're in A, it would look like this. Let's get going with one last little tidbit. As promised, there is blue notes. And right out of the gate, you'll notice that gives it a very bluesy attitude. Specifically here, where it goes in between what would be, if this is my root, will be in between my perfect fourth and fifth. Think of your fifth as where you make your bar chords, and the fourth is just a whole step back from that in either major or minor scale, so they call it perfect fourth and fifth because that's usually where it's placed, okay? In this case, it's actually here compared to the root, and so if I throw in that, you'll hear that as a turnaround quite a lot. You could also put another blue note in between these 2 notes, in between the octave and the previous. So check out the samples and examples. So this is event number 1. next section is going to be called the Funk Free-for-All. You're going to notice that there are some songs that really take a big old bite out of the pentatonic. From the previous set, probably the most obvious one was Sunshine of Your Love. But in this next section, look for tunes like Lowrider, Superstitions. Also look for Delight. It's not a traditional pattern, and they're using those kind of blue notes mixed in there in really tasteful ways. Props to Bootsy Collins for collaborating with Delight. Enjoy. Final event in this event number 3 in this part 1 of the Pentatonic Pentathlon. Here we're going to tackle a couple of metal riffs. I tried to pull from an interesting pathway through my favorite metals: Metallica, Megadeth, and then closing with Pantera. Jump in the Fire, which is one that I noticed when I was a kid learning that it was very similar shape. One of my favorite all-time Megadeth songs, Peace Sells. Okay, and so that one is one that pulls straight out of that pentatonic bass line. We'll play it on the guitar. And then Cowboys from Hell, incredible. Love that song. It's one of those that Daryl developed his style. It became something harder and harder to classify. On some of that Far Beyond Driven album, there was some more pentatonically rooted things there. 5 Minutes Alone, I'm Broken, those are pretty pentatonically. So many great songs in here. They're not stayed glued into the pentatonic. They're adding back in some interesting notes, playing off those blue notes, and then sometimes we'll incorporate notes from a major key. You could hear on the examples from Led Zeppelin, as well as the Black Crowes, that they're using some major flavors in there. You can coordinate oftentimes the pentatonic scale with certain major keys like Mixolydian. And so, there's a whole episode on Mixolydian. Check that out. So enjoy these metal tracks. All right, hope you enjoyed part 1 of the Pentatonic Pentathlon. Lots more to come in the next episode, getting more into solos, melodies, and things like that. I think if you haven't heard all of these full songs and the albums they come from and other great albums by these bands, please check those out. All right, so that's your homework. Look into these songs, listen to them all the way through, and see how they go through other transformations and they're not just stuck in any kind of pentatonic rut or cliche. All right, have fun. See you on the next one.